This movie is living proof why spaghetti is the greatest food in the world. The Flash released today in 2023 and is directed by Andy Muschietti, who is also behind such films like Mama, It, and It Chapter 2. And this movie is starring double Ezra Miller, Sasha Calle, Michael Shannon, Ron Livingston, Maribel Verdú, Kiersey Clemens, Ben Affleck, and Michael Keaton. But I'm sure all of you know that this is a multiverse movie, and multiverse movies get their little kicks out of putting in so many different cameos from so many different people that we've seen in so many different roles in this entire DC movie franchise, and it made this DC fan very happy. And just so everyone is aware, I am not going to be talking about spoilers and spoiling all the cameos that happen in this movie. They're delightful, they do happen, but you're going to get a generic review from me about the things that we know from all the trailers. Some people out there have followed Andy Muschietti's Instagram account where he's talked about the cameos that he's worked with, and they talk about them in their reviews as if that's okay, and it's not. Because people like me don't follow that, or they try to avoid that. So you're not going to get any spoilers from me, trust me. We're just going to be talking about some brief plot points here. Here we are. We finally made it. The Flash has finally been released. This movie was originally slated to come out in March of 2018, and ever since then has had at least 7 different release dates from that original date. There's probably 1 or 2 more from my research and looking this up, but yeah, this movie went through production hell of trying to figure out what they were going to do. Originally, it was going to be part of the Snyderverse playing into Justice League Part 2 and then Part 3, but then that whole shit went down, and so they're just restructuring it into just a generic Flash movie. It was supposed to be Flashpoint at one point, and then writers came in, different directors came in, but they finally figured it out. They finally cracked the code, and they made this movie one of the most enjoyable superhero movie experiences that I've had in the last several years. Now, they have had a lot of issues over the last couple of years, but Ezra Miller in this film is stupendous. He is excellent. He is inspiring to see his performance as an older Barry Allen and a version of his younger self, and to see how they play off each other and the growth of each character, where you watch the younger Barry Allen be his annoying little self that everyone has criticized ever since he was cast in this role. He's just annoying, he's young, he's naive, he's just excited by everything that happens to him. But then also to see the older version of Barry Allen realize just how annoying he was when he was younger, and to see that growth inside of himself. This character of Barry Allen times 2 has a tremendous arc in this movie, and it's very emotional. When we get to those emotional moments, and you'll see them when you go watch this movie, it brought tears to my eyes. I was legit crying in the theater. It was a beautiful moment, it was a heartfelt moment, and it's a moment that really defines a great superhero. That sacrifice and giving up the things that you love in order to help other people. It would be so easy to just do the things that you want to do to make yourself happy, but in the end, things are fleeting and things do die. So to see a character like Barry Allen learn to accept those facts, it was a beautiful thing, and it made the whole experience of watching this movie with all of the cameos, some of the, I guess, shady CGI that some people have criticized. I don't know, it wasn't a problem for me, but it made all of it worth it just to get to that very heartfelt moment at the end of this movie. It is beautiful. Like I said before, it's a multiverse movie, so we have cameos in here, several cameos that I'm impressed with. DC marketing, they like to spoil a lot of things with cameos and different villains that are surprisingly going to show up. They put all those in the trailer. They left a lot of them out of the marketing for this movie, so thank you, DC marketing. You learned your lesson from Batman v Superman and Shazam 2. You just leave all the cameos and surprises in the movie. We'll go watch it, I promise. But the story of this film is so great that it's not defined by its cameos. We have a lot of multiverse movies or a lot of team-up movies where just bringing in certain characters, bringing in certain people is like a cool thing. Like, oh my god, that was so worth it. That doesn't make the story worth it, in my opinion. The story here is definitely worth it. Take the cameos out of it, I mean, they're great additions, and they made this guy very happy, but this movie is not defined by its cameos, is what I'm saying. And with all these cameos and multiverse explanations, we get, in my opinion, the best explanation for time travel that has ever been presented to me. They have a lot of callbacks to the movie Back to the Future, which is great, because Back to the Future is one of those perfect movies that everyone knows and everyone loves, but they talk about how that film conditioned everyone in pop culture that if you go back in time and you change something, that changes your future. But they use spaghetti noodles to explain how that's not the case. If you go back in time to a certain point, that branches it off, and that creates a brand new future and a brand new past. And when you have a bunch of those, you get what is known as spaghetti, where you have multiple things crisscrossing here and there. Best explanation ever. I think Avengers Endgame tried to talk about this a little bit, but they just briefly mentioned it in Endgame and everyone just kind of moved on with it. Here, though, they actually spend a little time in explanation, and they show you little tiny props to grasp your mind about how time travel works. And I loved it. I was like, oh my god, that is brilliant. That is so cool, and that makes so much sense. Now, I know some of the criticism that this film has gotten as it's been released slowly over the last month or so is that the CGI, the visual effects aren't good. They look very rubbery at some points, and I guess I can somewhat agree with that. Yes, it's not the most perfect CGI, but I guess in my mind, when I go to a movie, I'm story-driven, right? So if the story is engaging, if I am sucked into the story, bad CGI that doesn't make sense, I guess it doesn't affect me because I'm just so enthralled with the story itself. It's a movie about time travel, Barry Allen going through the multiverse. Yeah, there's gonna be special effects, and special effects aren't real. My brain knows that, so I guess I have a bigger willing suspension of disbelief than the average person, maybe, because the visual effects didn't bother me. I thought they were quite cool. I especially love the CGI when we get to the Speed Force, and the concept behind the Speed Force. It almost looks like it's a Colosseum, like they're standing in the Roman Colosseum and they just see an endless sea of an audience that are different versions of the time that they are going back to save. I like that concept. It looked really neat, and I don't recall that from the comics or any of the previous Flash TV shows that have come out. Now, I talked about Ezra Miller and how they are just exceptional in this movie. This is a Flash movie. This isn't a movie called Flash, and they have like 50 different Batmans in here. This is not that. This is a Flash movie. But Batman does show up in here, and it's Michael frickin' Keaton, who is the coolest Batman to this date. No one can take that away from him. And he's still really cool. It's really cool that he's in this movie, because I remember after Batman Returns came out, and they were talking about Batman 3 with Tim Burton, and they were talking to Michael Keaton about it. He's like, I'm not gonna do it without Tim. If Tim's not doing it, I'm not coming back as Batman. So for a guy to swear off being this role because of someone else, but then being just enticed to come back because of the role that he has in this movie, it's just cool that Andy Muschietti got him back. That's just so freaking cool. He does play a factor in certain missions in this film, but he doesn't really play into the overall arc and the overall conflict of this movie. Like I said, this is about the Flash, and that's all about the Flash stuff. And Sasha Calle as Supergirl, I think, is great for the time that we get her. We don't get a lot of her, actually. I was a little shocked at how little we got of Supergirl in this film. We got enough, I think, to where I can say I really enjoyed her performance and enjoyed where this character was going. Little disappointed in that. I wish she would have played more into something. Basically, I just want more of her, and I hope that she remains as Supergirl in the upcoming Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow film, because I think this version of Kara Zor-El is wonderful, and I think would fit perfectly into the story of Women of Tomorrow. And of course, Ben Affleck is here sporting a blue cowl for the very first time ever since 1966 Batman movie with Adam West. And this is a nice little, very short appearance by Ben Affleck as Batman, and I think he's been one of the best Batman that we've ever had. And this film felt like a nice passing of the torch. Like, he has stated previously that he's done, but then he agreed to come back for this for one last ride, and I felt that sense of this is him passing the torch and that he's not coming back to this role ever again. And that's a sad thing because, again, I think he's great, but this was a nice little send-off, and I really appreciate him in this movie and his performance just in the entire DC film history as Batman. This is a movie about mental health, and it's a movie about grief. It is a movie about acceptance. It's about allowing yourself to feel pain and to feel hurt and to feel desperate for that need to just change something, or change something that gave you a scar that has really defined you almost your entire life. And in this movie, and like all other multiverse movies, they talk about these absolute moments, these points in time that always happen, or that they need to happen in order for something to continue on. And moments like Bruce Wayne's parents being shot, or Barry Allen's mother being killed, these are moments in time that need to happen. No matter how much we try to go back and change the thing, those points are always going to happen. It's like that episode of What If with Doctor Strange and how he always tried to save Christine, but the moment just kept on happening again and again and again. Here we are again with the same thing. And to think that the smallest action could have the greatest consequences on the universe and on the world and on your life, I think is a very powerful thing. You step on the wrong blade of grass, if you move something from one shelf to another shelf, if you breathe at a certain point differently than you did in another timeline, that creates a whole other butterfly effect that could change just everything in the world. And I think that's very powerful, of how little our small little actions and how big of an impact they have on the entire universe. Maybe we don't see that, of course, because we're living on our own little timeline, but to know that the possibility of that exists, again, I think is quite beautiful and quite powerful. To wrap up this review, I will say that I go watch movies to make myself happy. When I go to watch films, I'm enthralled. I'm always enthralled, whether the film is good or bad. I'm just happy I'm watching movies. And I don't know why that gives me joy and gives me happiness. It's just something that I've always known. I love watching movies, whether it's at the theater or in the comfort of my own home. I don't care. I just love sitting down, watching a film, and being told a story. So when I watched this movie, I was nothing but happy. There wasn't a bone in my body that was annoyed, confused, sad, wishing that something else would have happened. I sat there the entire time in joy, with a smile on my face, loving what I was seeing, and just watching a movie that just purely made me happy, because I have grown up with these characters my entire life. I think I was introduced to Marvel a little bit later on in life because, well, they didn't have any movies as I was growing up, because the DC universe has extended for a very long time. We're going back to like the 30s. But growing up with Christopher Reeve's Superman, or Michael Keaton's Batman, or hell, even the Joe Schumacher Batman films, which I'm a big fan of and I'm an apologist for. I love those movies to death. I grew up with these characters from the DC, and I love these characters. And to see them handled with such love and such respect here in this film, I've heard it before in other reviews that this is a love letter to the DC fandom, and it's true. This is a love letter to every single fan out there of these characters, of the Justice League, of Superman, Batman, of Wonder Woman, of Green Lantern, every single one of them. This is your love letter to them. And for those fans out there who get caught up in, oh, well, what does it mean for the DCU? What's the franchise going to look like? What about the Snyderverse? It's not respecting them. We should continue his story. Oh, but it's ruining Christopher Nolan's Batman, or it's ruining previous DC films that came before. I'm going to ask you to just put those worries and to put those criticisms aside and just sit there and enjoy the movie. Because this movie is just presenting nothing but love to your fandom, and I accepted it. I absolutely loved it. Just driving home from the theater, I couldn't help but just think about how happy I was after watching this movie. And for a movie to make me feel like that, this is one of my favorite movie-going experiences of my entire life. That being said, after watching this movie, I still don't know what's going to happen with the DCU or where that's going in the new direction with James Gunn and Peter Safran. There were some fanboys out there who were theorizing that this movie's going to reset the entire DCU, and maybe there's still questions up in the air. So if you're going in looking for clarity on what's going to happen after this film, you ain't going to get that. I'm sorry. But what you will get is, again, a fantastic movie-going experience. It is fun, it is heartfelt, it is emotion, it is a love letter to the DC fandom of all DC fandoms. If you've been a fan of these movies, if you've been a fan of these TV shows over so many different years, you're gonna love this movie, and you're gonna have such a great time in it. It's fan service, but I've never understood the criticism behind it, because fan service, in my opinion, is great. I love seeing stuff, because I'm a fan, and if you're gonna service this fan, please do so. I love being serviced. Service me, please. I'm gonna give The Flash 4.5 out of 5 Blu-rays.
It's good. It's good.
So guys, have you seen The Flash? What did you think about it? What is your ranking of all of the films in the DCEU, which that will be where it started with Man of Steel back in 2013, 10 years ago? Or even better yet, what is your ranking of all DC superhero films that have been released, going back to Superman and the Mole Man from the 1940s, I want to say? Whatever you thought, comment below, let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell, so you know the next time I'm released next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time on the channel, but in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.